Alright, so the first thing that we learned in this unit was transformations. How can your normal parabola change? Okay, so our normal, right, this is how we just start. That's our normal. We can do things to that. So what are the options? We could shift right or left or up or down. Okay, we could move that around. Okay, we could shift in any direction. What else can we do to this? We could narrow so that the arms went skinnier like that. Or we could widen. Okay, so changing the pattern of the arms of it. And then there was one more thing that could happen. It could flip or reflect like that. Okay, question A, what has happened? And you should have two answers for it. So there's a 4 and there's a 1 part. So what is the 4 going to do? So it's the multiplier in the front. What does the A do? It's going to narrow. And what's the subtract 1 on the outside going to do? Down. It's going to go down. Okay, question B, there's two answers for this. Something because of that and because of that. What? It's going to flip. And what direction is it going to go? Left. Okay, so I would go opposite, right? Okay, letter C has two answers to it as well. Widen. It will widen because that value is less than 1. And right. Okay, the last one has 3. There's going to be 3 things you need to write about it. See if you can get the 3. Okay, so your answer should have been it flips or reflects, it narrows, and it goes up 5. Okay, next one was when we talked about standard form. Okay, so it looks like the following. We did vertex. So what's the coordinate of this vertex? So it should be -3, comma, -4. No. Okay, so in that format it's opposite because everything is opposite. The slope, so the slope is 2 because that's the multiplier. If the slope is 2, my parabola will be heading upward. Okay? Axis of symmetry, always start it with x equals. Everybody tends to forget that. X equals, and what x value will it cut through? -3, and that's because that's where the vertex is. Okay, domain should always be the same. So they always go left and right forever. Okay, the range, we already determined it was opening like that. So I'm going to have some kind of minimum to infinity. Some kind of minimum, and then it will go to infinity. So what is that height? Does anybody know where to look for that height? What would be the height on that coordinate? -4, because that's the y, right? Heights are y. Okay, what do I do to get a y-intercept? What does a y-intercept mean? When the x value is 0, okay, so what's the math? You're going to have 2 times 9, right? Because that would be 3 squared. So that was 18. You're going to have to subtract 4 yet, because you have to get that 4 out of there. Okay, so let's do a little graph here, -3, -4. Okay, on the side, I'm just going to give myself a little chart here. So I'm going to go 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. That's the pattern to start with. Is that our pattern, or does our pattern change? It'll change because the slope is 2. So I'm going to go over 1, up 2. And I'm going to do over 2, up 8. My y-intercept seems like it would make sense at 14. That makes sense to me. Crossing up here at 14. That's where you would. It's narrower. Okay, all the things tie in together. Okay, B. The vertex is +1, +8. Okay, when it was on the end there, I leave it the same. If it's on this side, that's when I switch it. Slope is, what's the in front number? -1 would be the slope, because there's really a -1 in front of that. So therefore it will open downward. The axis of symmetry, x equals, and then you have to think about what x value it cuts through. So that would be 1. Domain, same old, -infinity to infinity. Okay, so range, if it looks like this, what's the lowest? The lowest would be -infinity to a highest max value. Did you pick 8? Okay, and then on this, we decided we should plug in 0. Okay, so we have to be careful here. This says, what is negative 1 squared? So that's positive 1. Then times it by a negative 1. Okay, so I did negative 1 squared, which was positive 1. Then after I multiplied it by a negative 1 on the outside. Okay, so our vertex is 1, 8. And now we got to work with our slope. What kind of pattern are you going to make if your slope is negative 1? So all we're going to do is, instead of the 1, 4, 9, we're going to do that in a negative. So over 1, down 1. Okay, and then it connected with my Y-intercept, so that was good. Okay, on your test, I do ask you to plot 5 points. So that's what I'd be looking for. Basically doing at least 2 things in the pattern. Okay, so that was what we called standard form. And that was transformation form. So then we did general form. Okay, so this is general form. Sorry, I didn't write it here. Okay. Use this little formula to find the vertex. So negative b over 2a. So negative b, I'm going to go negative 10 divided by 2 times, what is the a number? How many x squareds? Just 1. So negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. So your vertex is negative 5 comma something. Okay, what do I do to get that? So I'm going to have to go plug in negative 5. So y equals negative 5 squared plus 10 times negative 5 plus 16. Okay, so here's where things might go wrong, our negative math here. This is negative 5 squared. So does that make sense that it turns out positive? And then subtract 50 plus 16. So if you were in your calculator, do you know this? Those are different in your calculator. Okay? This, if you typed that in, it would work for you. If you typed that in, it will give you something wrong. Okay, so if you're working in your calculator, please pay attention to small details like that. This would completely change your answer. So make sure you do that because they're different. Okay, so what do we end up getting here? Negative 25 plus 16, so negative 9. So that's my vertex. Okay, determine the X-intercepts, so that is where Y is 0. So if Y is 0, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to plug it in. Okay, how did we figure how to solve this algebraically? What was the technique we had to do? Factor, because you can't get X by itself here. You can't do that. So 2 brackets, XX, multiplying to 16 and adding to 10 is what you're thinking about. So 8 times 2 would work if they were both positive. So here the X-intercept should be a negative 8, and on that one it would be a negative 2. Okay, confirm the vertex is on the axis of symmetry. So this is what I'm thinking. I know that if those are my X-intercepts, they're symmetric partners with each other. So the axis of symmetry should be right in the middle of them. So what number on the number line would fall right in the middle? Is it negative 5? Yep. Okay, negative 5 would fall right in the middle, which would confirm with my vertex, right? Because my negative 5 was my X value of my vertex. Okay. So you do need to know this concept for the test just to make sure. I'll probably have like a 1 or 2 point worth on the test, just a question about that. Just falls in the middle. You need to remember that. Y-intercept. So this time it would be where X is 0. So this is what it looks like. But if you're aware, you could just snap your finger and understand that this would all be 0, so you'd have 16. Okay, so it's just the last number in this form. Just boom, what's at the end? Okay. So this is what I know right now. I know I have a vertex right there. And I know my Y-intercept is over there. I'm asking you to figure out what point would be symmetric to it. So here's, like, remember my axis of symmetry? What coordinate would be over there? Okay? You should understand that it for sure has a height of 16. Does that make sense? They'll be across from each other. So how am I going to figure out what X number it's at? So what if I gave you a hint like this? Can you figure out some distance stuff? -10. because this point is 5 away from the center, so I need to go 5 away from the center on that side of it, right? Okay, so that's a symmetric partner. Okay, let's graph. So I have negative 5, 9, negative 9. I have a negative 2 and a negative 8 for X-intercepts. Can we get a few more? What's our slope here? What was our slope? Just 1. So I'm going to go 1, 1, 2, 4. Okay, now, number 4. This one we didn't do yesterday, but it's the same concept. Okay, so first question, use negative b over 2a, plug in to find the vertex. Okay, so negative b is positive 5, because you have to do the opposite, over 2 times 2. Okay, if you did this in your calculator, you would be wrong. If you went 5 divided by 2 times 2, like that, your calculator will give you wrong answer. Okay, my suggestion is put brackets or just go 5 divided by 4. Okay? Do you understand why the first one was wrong? Because it would have done 5 divided by 2 and then times that number by 2. That's not what you want. Okay, so 1.25. So far our vertex is 1.25, comma. So now I need to plug that in. So 2 times 1.25 squared So I'm plugging it in like that. So replace x with a 1.25. And then you should get some kind of decimal. You'll get a decimal, and that's fine. Okay, what are we getting? Anybody 12 point something? Okay, 12.875. Okay. That's fine if you round it. I just didn't because it just stopped. So then if it would have kept going forever, I would have rounded it. But Y-intercept, remember in these ones you can just do it like that. What is it? A snap of a finger? 16, because those were zeros. The slope is 2. The domain is negative infinity to infinity. And the range, so I do know it opens upward because of the 2 slope. So what is the lowest height to infinity, right? That would be how it works. Some kind of low height to infinity. And then what's the lowest height? The 12.875. So if you were to draw just a rough sketch, because we're not going to do points on this. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to go 5, 10, 15, 20. So I know 1.25, comma, 12. So somewhere in the middle. And I know my Y-intercept is 16, which would flip a symmetric point over there somewhere. And that's good. Just a rough sketch of kind of what's the idea. Okay, so for those of you who didn't take my applied course, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go y equals 2x squared minus 5x plus 16. And then I'm going to graph it. And there's what it looks like. I'm going to calculate the minimum point. What point is on the bottom? I'm going to have my little mouse. I'm going to move it there, and then I'm going to move it to the other side. And then I'm going to enter. And I get 1.25, comma 12.875. That's the vertex. Okay? If I want the y-intercept, I'd say trace. And then I say mouse, go to 0, enter. So that's the 16. So there's what it looks like.